right. Sorry about that. The stream did not want to connect. That is probably because I had forgotten to change the title of the stream, which a bit of an oversight on my part. I have the correct links down below, which is good. I think. I'm pretty sure. I should probably check that on the yes. All right. Links are all good. The title's all good. We are good to go. We have 10 releases, a few EPs, one mini album, and then mostly albums this week. So it's kind of a counterbalance to last week. We've got rock and metal. We've got pop and indie. We have some kind of electronic music, and we have rap. We got all of it covered this week. So kind of a solid one. And yeah, I guess that's it. I'm not going to waste too much time here. I'm just going to kind of get right into it. So let me make sure everything is set up here. All right, I think we're good. So yeah, okay. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, let me go ahead and transition. I have the album artwork all open on a folder, so we'll be good to go. You can look at the nice pictures, all that fun stuff. We are starting out with an EP, which I have literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words, 7 if you count a hyphenated word. So 6 or 7 words in the description. This is the EP. It's a single, but it's like almost 14 minutes long. So this is the EP Stужа from the group Triggernaut. I guess I can go ahead and put the album artwork up there. I do think it is AI generated. It's kind of got that look to it. So you know, kind of whatever. But you know what you're getting into with this. Sludgy post-metal with some of the like sort of hardcore, melodic hardcore heaviness. So I'm just going to go ahead and give us a little bit of a listen here. Jump ahead. There we go. That's what I was waiting for. But that instrumental, long, kind of atmospheric thing. Very few lyrics across this release. Like on this track, there's probably like 3 actual lines of text. They repeat themselves, but yeah, just sludgy post-metal. There's really not too much else to say about it. If you like post-metal, if you like sludge, you're probably gonna get yourself something here. And I'll go to the title track too, so we, again, kind of slow, atmospheric at the start. Here's that hardcore that does appear from time to time across these tracks. And kind of like, it switches things up and up. Again, it's post-metal, kind of like bounces around. So, yeah, I'll cut it there. You like sludge, you like post-metal, you're gonna find something there. It's relatively short. It's an EP. So that is the EP, I guess, Stужа. The group is Triggernaut. I don't actually know. I think they might have like one other. Yeah, they do have one other release from last year. So not too much to say about them just yet, but I don't know. I liked what I heard. That's why I'm talking about it. That's why I'm talking about it right now. Up next, we are on to, we got this quite abstract album artwork. This is the EP Things That Make Me Happy by the artist Antent. We actually saw this artist back in the first quarter together with Nectary. Then the music was chill out, ambient. Those were the labels that were typically attached to it. And I said it reminded me of a collection of bridge tracks that artists use on pop or rock releases as reflective instrumental interludes to give the listener a breather or something out of a video game soundtrack. Regardless, the tracks were all a mix of emotions like nostalgia, general yearning, joy, and wonder. Just feel good, relaxing music. That was the release that Antent put out a few months ago with another artist, Nectary. Here, it's... I went back and I looked a little bit at his previous output. His older music was more Monster Cat style. Like, Monster Cat's a Canadian EDM label, and it's all good, but it's kind of generic in a lot of ways. I don't know. I guess I haven't listened to Monster Cat artists in a long time. But anyway, if you know Monster Cat, you probably know what I'm talking about. So I went back and I listened to some of his earliest work, and it had that kind of general Monster Cat EDM style. But over the last few years, he's worked together with this Nectary artist, and One Heart is another one. And I actually talked about the One Heart artist, I think, last year as well. And it feels like that has added a bit of a softer side to his music, a bit more of a reflective dimension to the sound. And this EP is a little bit of that older EDM style married together with, with that sort of more reflective thing. So again, the lightness here, the airiness feels akin to what we heard earlier. But the heavier basses, the kind of the wobbles and distortions is a lot more akin to the Monster Cat-esque EDM. Jump ahead. There's this like tension here, right, between the two different styles. It constantly feels like it wants to break through into that heavier, again, kind of like more funk EDM type thing, but that softer sound keeps pulling it back, and I do like that tug of war aspect to a lot of the tracks on this release. you know, that's not to say that it does this the whole time. There definitely are tracks that go through with the actual, like the more, again, Monster Cat EDM style, I think. Yeah, the obligatory sort of wave-like female vocals. And then this track in particular reminded me of the group C2C, which I think is a French group. I don't remember though. Yeah. Bit of an odd reference, but there was an old, I think it was like what the Andy Samberg when he was on Saturday Night Live, and they had like those digital shorts or whatever, and there was one of them where Andy was a DJ, and he was like waiting to make the bass drop, and everyone was progressively losing their minds, and like just things were getting more and more extreme, and he as the DJ refused to drop the beat. That's what happens a lot on this, and I do, like I said, I do really like that the back and forth, that tension that exists from it feeling like it's going to build up and it's actually going to drop, and there's going to be like this sort of big energetic, but it doesn't happen in the way that you would expect it to across these 5 tracks. So if there is one thing, I do really enjoy this, but you know, and obviously on an EP it works. If there was more of a full album, it would be nice if there was actually, or there were a few moments across it where the tension finally did break through, and it would probably like really like set things off, because that tension, you know, like waiting for a chord to resolve type thing, and when it continues and you don't get it, like it's still enjoyable, but when it does finally hit on albums and on songs, after a long time of it not happening, it's that much more effective. So anyway, still nice to see Antent here, I don't know, doing something like mixing up, I guess what I would call like newer sounds with older sounds, and getting something like that. But that is the EP things that make me happy. The artist is Antent. And yeah. Up next, we have the final EP. This is Летние. All right, I gotta switch over to Russian here. God help me. This is a group that we have seen before, Диктофон, and the EP here is Летние каникулы. Летние каникулы. Летние каникулы. All right. Диктофон put out 2 really good indie albums last year, like indie rock albums. One of them was basically a double album, and this year they've been kind of quiet, which makes sense. They put out a lot of music last year. This is their first release of 2026, and just so you know, Летние каникулы translates to like summer holidays or summer break. This is their first of a quartet of EPs that's going to be focused on like holidays, breaks around each of the seasons. exploring themes and emotions and just kind of musical ideas that they have associated with the various seasons and kind of holidays during that time. The group Bureau did it last year with SALUKI was the name of the EP. It actually began in late 2024, actually. And I actually really, really enjoyed that EP cycle. So I'm looking forward to this one. This is, yeah, it's just like a really good start. Each track's got a different energy, a different style, but it all sounds like the Diktофон that I came to know from last year's releases. What they had to say about the release is, our band often experiments with forms. Vacations is a musical series on 7-inch records, recorded analog style, on tape, and live in studio. Emotional swings from energetic rock and roll to melancholic courtyards. I'll just go ahead and play a little bit. Oh, yeah. It'll be interesting to see what the album artwork is like, too. I do think Diktофон is probably on like the Russian indie scene, especially like the indie rock scene, one of the best doing it right now. So take that for what it is. I do hope they keep the like black album artwork, you know, leaves next, snowflakes, and in the springtime, like, I don't know, like young blooms or something, but
смотрит крошка крыль и подружка клешни хвост. Вы чудо природы.
I love that sort of electric organ. They use it a lot. I don't know if it's like one of those instruments that they don't use it on every single track, but they use it regularly, and it is always nicely employed on the tracks. So anyway, yeah, if you're looking for some a nice little indie rock EP, then this is gonna do it. Yeah. Group is Диктофон. The EP is Летние каникулы, summer holidays, summer vacation, and nice little release. That's it. That's actually it for EPs. And I am also going to warn everyone right now, this is the heaviest moment, right? So if you're not a fan of metal, even if you are a fan of metal, you might not be a fan of this. This is, you might tell too, the album title, the group title and the song titles should give you a pretty good idea. This is Whoretonnel with the mini album here, Selfmade Autopsy. Brutal slamming death metal, grindcore. I saw the term porno grind used. I mean, you can tell based on some of the song titles. This is the type of music that I usually, and also the album artwork is what you would expect. Yeah. Anyway, it's the type of music I actually usually cannot personally stand myself. It's the type of music that when these albums come up, I'm usually just like, I can't listen to more than a minute of this. And I often question how anybody can listen to this. There is something going on this album, though. There is a groove to it. Yeah, the song titles are depraved and misspelled, and the grammar's all over the place. Thankfully, you can't make out the lyrics, even though they are in English. There's like a few points here and there you can. It's just like, I don't know. It's one of those like really heavy, brutal, right, metal albums. But normally it's just like so goddamn awful. And this is actually, for as ridiculous as the song titles are, it's actually, for the genre, pretty enjoyable. So just, if you don't like really, yeah, just brace yourselves or turn the volume down. Like the writing on the cymbals, there's a lot more swing in this than you would expect, especially for a track called Castrate Sociopath. So here's that sort of grind. With this classy song title. So, yeah, I know. I mean, it's, you know, slamming brutal death metal. You're gonna have the weird sort of piggy vocals. Anyway, it's a very niche genre. I get it, but I'm not gonna lie. I saw the album artwork. I saw the, like, just everything connected to this album, and I was just like, this is gonna be absolutely atrocious, even for me. And I'm used to a lot of like ridiculous metal genres. It's actually pretty good for what it is, right? So if you're in the market for that type of metal, I honestly would suggest checking it out. I was very pleasantly surprised for all of the releases that kind of go into that sort of the really brutal death metal, grindcore type stuff, which is actually far more of them than you would expect. I encounter them almost on like a weekly basis, and I usually don't talk about them. There's a reason for that. So this one is actually kind of fun for what the genre is. But yeah, anyway, that is the mini album Selfmade Autopsy by the group Whoretonnel. I don't even know. I'm probably gonna get like struck for that. Anyway, moving on. Coming into the full length now. This is the first one we have here. This is the album Whispering Winds of Sadness from the artist Breath of Wind. Just hear me out here. Instrumental, atmospheric, black metal. This is a one-man project out of Mias, and that kind of caught my attention. Mias is in the Ural Mountains. The wife and I were there during COVID on vacation. Like, in, I don't know, there's just like something about it. And it's a one-man band, one-man project type of thing, so it might not be as technical as some other releases in that kind of, you know, like atmospheric black or technical or instrumental black or whatever the hell you want to call it. But having been in that part of the country and knowing what the landscape is like there, it is really quite beautiful there. And it's one of those places I do want to go back to it sometime. I get the music, right? It's this kind of like black metal that does not feel so downcast and dejected. It feels more one like that's inspired by the landscape of the Urals. There's a lot more major chords than you would expect from a black metal release, and ultimately that works in the song, or in the, you know, in the favorite. The first track definitely feels more black metal, but it does shift in the back half, and that's actually where I'm going to kind of take us to. Pretty, you know, basic one-man band generic album artwork, so that's fine. Just jump ahead a little bit. Right, like the tremolo picking, the drums, the overall like way the track is arranged. It's very much black metal coded, but the music is kind of uplifting, which is typically not what black metal does. So it's kind of nice. Like, and I one-man band projects type of stuff, I'm always, you know, I mean, to be fair, I imagine Mias in the wintertime is kind of a dead place. In fact, probably kind of most of the year, unless you're like really big into, I just, there's no really skiing there. There is like one ski resort, but anyway, that's beside the point. I imagine there's a lot of time, like if you know how to play music, and just like stuck inside and just what you do. So you hear like there are moments. It's like, again, it's not like the most technical. It's pretty straightforward, but I'm not gonna hold that against it, right? You know, again, one-man band project, and ultimately, I don't think it really needs to be super technical, because it's also instrumental, and like here it's going for a specific atmosphere, and I think for the most part it achieves it. So. So yeah, I don't know, if you're in the market for some instrumental metal that's not gent. I know we had some gent style instrumental metal, I think 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago. I honestly don't remember at this point in time. The PWDLW artist or whatever. and you're more a fan of the black metal variety, I'd say give this a shot. It's quite nice, all things considered. It has like a, I don't know, I hate to come back to that term again and again, but it does have like this uplifting thing, even though it is black metal-y, which, not to say that I haven't heard that before, it definitely exists, but I don't know. You've heard a little bit of it, you can kind of figure it out for yourselves. That is the album Whispering Winds of Sadness by the project, by the group, whatever. Breath of Wind, out of Mias, which is the first Mias group we've had here. All right, the next two I'm going to talk about together because these are both by the collective Ежемесячные. I fucking struggled with this the last time. Let me go ahead and get the album artworks open because there are two of them. Ежемесячные. Well, I kind of got it there. Ежемесячные. Ежемесячные. It's not going to get better. Monthly or periods or whatever. Like, it kind of depends on how you want to translate it. The big thing with this collective is it contains SALUKI PSS, who is probably, I think most people would be all right with arguing, like, probably one of the most prolific Russian rappers right now, and probably one of the best, if not the best. That's up for debate, but whatever. It's him, and then another rapper, Jiggly. But then the other difference between these two albums is the other two, right? So it's SALUKI PSS and Jiggly on both of them, but then there are two other rappers and they both differ. I'm not going to get into it. It doesn't really matter all that much. It's basically them ciphering over these kind of like janky old school beats I don't mean that in a derogatory sense at all, just like really good kind of fun old school style rap beats. Lyrics are all full of these really deep references to like pop culture, history, literature. Although there's, I think, more pop culture on the second of the two. There's a lot of video game references there. I'm just going to put that there. The flow, the lyricism oftentimes reminds a little bit of like A$AP Rocky, artists like that kind of like really, really intelligent hip hop. Really the biggest problem that I have with both of these releases, specifically on ДУШЕВНО И КРЕПКО, this first one here with Matthew McConaughey under a shower head and with a bottle. I have no idea what's going on with this album artwork, but I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's so bizarre. They constantly have things bleeped out on this, but that's not really their fault. That's Roskomnadzor, who can, go slurp down a fat one. Basically, yeah, both of these albums dropped on the same day, which I guess they record them, they put them out there. That's good for them. Slava had this to say about the release. He said, Yeja is like a fucked up TV show that went on for many seasons. And I think somewhere on the album, Личные непубличные, as it were, the series ended. And what came next was, a full-length Hollywood film with all sorts of media stars on Король Абстракта 5, some good prequels like Mongo, and all sorts of strange seasons with new actors and so on. I think this is how it needs to be seen. So basically, I don't know what episode you would be comparing this to, but let me just get into it. We'll get an idea. I do think I prefer the, there's two albums, ДУШЕВНО И КРЕПКО, which is the Matthew McConaughey one, and then, the album artwork is there. Мы из ванной, or We're from the Bathroom. I think I do prefer the ДУШЕВНО И КРЕПКО a little bit better, but they both have their moments, so. I just love the album artwork.
Это душевно и крепко, как самогон на березовых ветках, как прах из пакета развеять по ветру. В местах, где пиздата, нас никогда нет, но мы не жалеем об этом, ведь все мы в итоге наполним пакет. Это душевно и крепко, как самогон на березовых
Эти споры никогда не утихнут. Уйдем потихо и возьмем пиво крепкой пихты. Запишем хит беззаботный. Я выражаю мысли свободно. Сперма, расчлененка, рвота, все как надо. Еже это способ уйти от стада. Похуй из еврейки или халифата. Нам не важен твой пол, статус и объем счета. Ты с нами, если нашел в этих строках что-то. 12 лет прошло с тех пор. Первый релиз, первый скит. И до сих пор помню эти деньки. Время не спит и уже не осилю так хавать спирт. Но еби без натуг потянем, не так ли? Вспомним старые мазы, старый двор, как впервые встретили Ваню. Он был, что ли, помню, парнишкой. Толково эти эпишки и гонор. Навсегда в гиппокампе, братишки.
Да, жизнь не всегда тика-така, да и мы так-то не тихие ребята. Порой откровенно фалим. Мой мозг, мой агоним, а твой нимб на диодах. Да я лучше разок идиотом, чем всю жизнь дураком.
Он шатается, несется пьяный фристик на интуристе. Братан, не кисни, мы еще сделаем песни. Спустя 20,
So,
спустя 30.
as is often the case with this type of like rap and hip hop, lyrically, you're gonna get a lot more out of this release than if you don't understand. But it's still music, so you can still kind of vibe with it, I guess.
Это не то чтобы классика Ежи, просто текст в голове всплыл бегущей строкой. Я вспомнил American Boy, American Dream. Если хочешь, сейчас повторим тот квадрат еще разок снимем и поймаем всех местных на спиннинг. Имея стоник нашивку и полторашку наживкой, пацаны смогут выкупить шифр. Ведь ничего не меняется, ошибка. Я достану заначку и закину за шиворот и пойдем.
And I do like ДУШЕВНО И КРЕПКО definitely feels a lot more serious and more introspective, and this one is more, I think, like fun and lighthearted. It's not like a party rap album in any way, but I think it's a little bit more silly.
Пускай горит, но не сгорает. Мы не сарай, блядь. Я помню юные глаза и как магнитом манит. Вспоминать, как было круто, будет еще круче. Пускай смех смехом, знаю, будет еще круче. Дископоника, грязный вор, шишки бар. Первый на гонорар, фиш-фабрик, жильцов. Пьяненький горош на стойнике, спи спокойненько. От Свибова до Новодевяткина. Ждите нового участника. Нас будет еще больше.
There is actually a chorus there, which is kind of wild. I forgot about that. This whole track is each of the rappers plus Pyrokinesis rapping about like basically their favorite video games, or like it's just all about video games. Anyway, it's just like, it's kind of dumb, but I also kind of really appreciate that. You know, if back in the day, you would have rappers going off about like old horror films or comic books and things of that nature, it feels appropriate for that sort of torch to continue on in the form of video games, because it's also inherently kind of nerdy in its own way. Last track, but yeah, ultimately 2 really good albums. I think other art, well, actually no, in the streaming era, there really isn't as much filtration as there was in the past. So I feel like most artists just get stuff put together and they put it out there without too much thought a lot of the time. And even though there's a lot of stuff on these albums that's like, you know, it's fine. It's not like the best. Again, could you cut like a third out of both these albums and put them together and get like a really, really solid, massive one? Yes, but I also think, like I said, Крепко и Душевно is definitely like a little bit more, or Душевно и Крепко, it's a little bit more of like that kind of serious, introspective, reflective one. And then Мы из ванной, this one right here, is a little bit more playful, it's a little bit more upbeat, right? Like, it's kind of joking around. It's more like rapping about everyday stuff, and it's not the two sides of the coin type thing, but they do complement each other. And obviously, if you can understand what they're rapping about, that makes things better, but you can kind of get by without it too, right? You can just kind of like vibe along with it. So anyway, that is the collective Ежемесячные, with the albums Душевно и крепко and Мы из ванной. Boom. And just like that, down to the final three already. Look at that. Look at that. Boom, boom, boom. But that's okay, because the final two are kind of big ones. I'm going to spend some time with them. This one, however, kind of was a bit of a surprise. This is Fables Volume 1 from the groups Valiant, Hearts, and Galleons. Now, Valiant, Hearts, and Galleons are groups that you might have actually heard of if you are in the post-hardcore scene in, like, I don't know, the English language world. These are groups that are fronted by the same singer who is from Australia, but the instrumentalists and sometimes the backing vocals are all connected to artists in Russia. I don't know how that got started. I have no idea how this one singer from Australia managed to link up with different instrumentalists here in Russia. I think even from different cities. And they play kind of sort of the same thing, but they both play post-hardcore music. It's kind of like emo, progressive post-hardcore, and there's a lot of video game kind of effects going on in it. Kind of fits with the visuals that the band typically uses, and I think some of their earliest work. But I don't know. I haven't listened to him recently, but there's an artist, Bill Murray, who did like country post-hardcore, or I guess sometimes too there's like the term crabcore, but anyways, that's its own thing. I was a big fan of Bill Murray, like a few years back. I still really enjoy his stuff when I run across it. This reminded me a lot of Bill Murray. The reason that these two groups are together here, Valiant, Hearts, and Galleons, these are all B-sides from their last few albums. So I don't know, should this be here? Yeah, I'm going to put it in here because everybody aside from the vocalist, everybody aside from the main vocalist is in Russia. So we're going to put, and like they're very, very active on Vkontakte. But yeah, let me just go ahead. Oh, there's the album artwork. I always feels weird calling this post-hardcore. I know that's what the post-hardcore genre is, but it just still, like Glass Jaw at the Drive-In. I know this is like modern post-hardcore, but a bit of a difference. There are those video game visuals. The harsher vocals, like the ones you're hearing right now, these are actually done by one of the Russian artists as well too. So anyway, I'll cut it at that. I just kind of an interesting thing too, right? You got Australia and Russia, which do honestly kind of feel like opposite ends of the globe in more ways than like the United States and Russia. But you know, thanks to the internet, you can create stuff with anyone all over the globe. And it's kind of cool, right? Because it's one of those things where if you go online, God forbid you go onto Reddit, you see a lot of people talking about these groups, especially Valiant Hearts. And it's just kind of interesting because, like, I don't know, the sort of fact that they do kind of exist in wildly different parts of the globe is not really a thing that people ever think about. So anyway, yeah, it's all in English, pretty straightforward, pretty understandable. Post-hardcore, fairly popular genre, I would say, all things considered, like in the rock scene, even to this day. So there you go. And it fits the bill. It's got basically all Russian artists, aside from the lead singer. So that is the album Fables Volume 1, collection of B-sides from the groups Valiant Hearts and the Galleons. All right, final two. These are the two big ones. First up, we have got TRENDKILL Power by, I'm just gonna, it's the same description I used last year, and I've seen every single time with this Russian Jay and Silent Bob, right? Yeah, this is the group Cardio Killer. A duo out of Nizhny Novgorod. I talked about them last year. I listened to their debut full length back in 2024. They've been putting out an LP every single year for the last, well, this is the third year running, so that's good stuff. Last year I described their album as the rock metal equivalent of a Girl Talk album, an album that if you experienced the rock and metal scene around the year 2000 or in the early 2000s, it will unlock all sorts of musical memories while at the same time sounding fresh and completely engaging. That still holds up on this album. The formula, I feel like, changed a little bit here. There's a lot more of that kind of like rap rock. I feel like there's more rapping or like rap adjacent type delivery on this album, especially in the first like half or like in the first 3 or 4 tracks, I would say. But then again, I didn't go back and re-listen to their first 2 albums, so maybe it was as present there. It felt a little bit more. It's not a bad thing. Obviously, I lived through that the first time around, so like coming at it now is not really a problem. And it's one of those things where it might actually appeal in some ways to a different group or a larger group. I don't really know what the split is on the sort of rap, or I don't know how popular rap rock is / was here. But yeah, I came up with a new description. I think all of that stuff works, like girl talk as for rock and metal. But I was listening to this, and I kind of realized that like this is the third of their albums now, and they've all kind of had the same sound. There's slight variations on it. They're all really good, really fun albums. And if you like this one, I highly recommend going back and checking out Mayhem Punk Rap and Move, right? Mayhem Punk Rap from last year and Move from 2024. They all have largely the same sound. But as I was listening to this, I realized that like it's an album where the sound, it's like these two adults who obviously listened to a ton of rock and rap rock and new metal 25 years ago. It kind of feels like they grew up out of that, like finished school and moved on to other music and other genres and other artists. And then they decided to start making music together decades after they had stopped listening to all of that music that they grew up on. And now it's like they're recreating that music from memory, but also trying to create it with that same emotion that they felt when first listening to it. Like if you go back and listen to some of those, because I've done it, right? You go back and you listen to some of those old, and it holds up for every single genre, but I feel like the rock and metal of the late 90s, early 2000s oftentimes aged really, really poorly. Kind of like hair metal, where like it was probably really cool at the time, but you go back and you look at it now and you're just like, a lot of this is pretty bad. It's fun in a bad way, but most of it's just like not good. But like at the time, it was really good. It felt really exciting, and it was just like it got you. I don't know, like you would just get so jacked up and ready for anything. That music, that feeling is encapsulated in this music. So I'm gonna shut up and just play a little bit of this. This is the one that's probably got like they're referencing Beastie Boys on purpose. This is the one that's heaviest into like the kind of rap rock end of things. But like once we get into the back half, it shifts more into that like kind of new metal-ish sound from their last few albums. They also have a very strong love of like System of a Down and Serge's vocal deliveries. I'm just gonna like, you'll hear that all the time. this album, and yeah, it's this album, and even more so with the next one, but equally so with this one. So I don't know, make sense of that. Is one of those that like it's really good from start to finish. There are a few lulls and stuff, but on the whole, it just like gets going. It doesn't. I don't. It's like it's not an "I Get Wet" by Andrew WK type album, but like all of the tracks are solid. And even when they kind of dip a little bit in the energy or like shift things up, it's just because they're shifting things up, I guess. The dance rock hi-hats right there. Like that. And the synth kind of to back it up. All right, one more just to kind of round us out here. Again, kind of like that girl talk where you'll be listening to tracks and just it will remind you of something, and oftentimes it is music from, well, Brett, for the two of us from high school, and it's just like, wow, man, what was that song? And then it might send you off on a musical quest into the past. Like, this guitar riff reminds me a lot of System of a Down as well, too. I don't remember which track, but like that kind of like soft and quiet, and then like so there's been a lot of like good metal albums, I guess, but this isn't really metal. There are allusions, references to new metal and other forms that this is just kind of a rock album in 2026. Maybe it would have been new metal or alt metal back in the day, but this just feels like modern rock in one of its varieties. And it's a really, really solid album from start to finish. Really, really fun. It's short too, right? It's barely over 30 minutes. But like that works in its favor. In the same way that I Get Wet by Andrew WK is just like, once it starts, it locks in and doesn't let you go until the very end. That's kind of what we got going on here. So that's the album TRENDKILL Power by the group Cardio Killer. And yeah, if you like that, go check out their other albums too, because like they've got that same level of energy, that same general sound. However, I got to wrap it up tonight with my boy, my guy, SALUKI. SALUKI, a few years back, put out an album, Wild East, in 2023, late 2023, if I remember. Or maybe I'm hallucinating. Early 2023, I don't know. I discovered it in late 2023. This is actually the album, Wild East, that kind of got me to look at Russian music again. I hadn't really been paying much attention to it for a long time. Obviously, COVID, the start of the war and all that stuff. But Wild East, I saw enough talk about it, and I was just like, okay. And I made a whole video on him and that. I was like, he's like a Russian Kanye type thing. Not with the bipolar Nazi type stuff. Just the musical versatility, an artist who in experimentation and taking stuff from different musical genres and not being afraid to be too tied down to one thing, was able to kind of flip the musical scene on its head multiple times. He actually put out 2 albums in 2024, Bolshie Kurtki and Beach House Rock. Beach House Rock was literally like a beach rock album, and Bolshie Kurtki was kind of more experimental. I didn't listen to him. 2024 was weird for me. I was still figuring out how to get through all of this music. But here we're in 2026 now. Yeah, it's 2026. And he's taking, I think, things in a new direction again. And I would not be surprised if a lot of the music scene kind of follows after him in this regard, in this, direction, in one way or another. We have EDM, electroclash, come indie pop of the 2010s, mixed together with his own kind of version of rap, just mixed in with like all sorts. This is another one of those albums where when I was listening to it, kind of like with Cardio Killer's album, when I was listening to it, I was reminded of so many different groups throughout that, like the 2000s, specifically the 2010s, right? Crystal Castles goes without saying, right? Anytime we're getting into electronic music here in Russia, it's Crystal Castles, 100%. However, Fisher Spooner is kind of maybe a deep pull for some of you. There's a track on here which I'll hit up, which reminds me a lot of, it's like got more energy, but it reminds me of Wolf Like You from TV on the Radio. There are tracks that have moments that kind of feel like MGMT or Toro y Moi. I think that's how you pronounce the guy's name, Toro y Moi. Plus a lot of archive core has been worked into it. It's a really weird mix. Let me just play some of it. We're going to start with this one. It's got some of that like Fisher Spooner, Crystal Castle stuff going on. I don't know, this has got more of the, Crystal Castles. We get a little bit into it. Yeah, that distortion, that heavy distortion, which is that kind of hallmark sound of this time of archive core, which really exploded onto the scene here last year, now being adopted with a significantly larger artist. And to be fair, Dark Prince, right? Temny Prince, who I talked about a few weeks back, is featured on this album as well. Also need to call out Mujus, who was extremely influential in the Russian music scene, like in the 2010s. To this day, in fact, if we talk about like post-punk as one of the core sounds of modern Russian music, Mujus is probably one of the other ones, and he's featured here as well too. So the vocals, you might notice, are kind of just like smashed into the mix. And this is something that he's always done, or at least like Wild East. This was one of the things he did. And at first I didn't get it, but it's just like kind of his thing, I guess. And I can get why some people maybe don't like it, but it kind of works. And like, this is 100% Crystal Castles, right? In the same way that Cardio Killer was System of a Down or Beastie Boys, or like, we've got this sort of weird, wonky Everly Brothers, right? Taken and warped and distorted. Might as well take this moment to kind of say to what the artist himself had to say about the album, right? He said, I'm nearly 30, I'm changing. At first, it seems like a story about work, unrequited love, and partying, which ends in a panic attack. But the further along the album goes, the more clearly it becomes that it's about growing up. About those moments when you have to let go of the older version of yourself so a new one can come about. Personally, I will say I kind of prefer the first half of the album, but in the same way, yeah, like, there's so much Crystal Castles here too. God damn it, why has the States and people forgotten Crystal Castles there? I'm so floored that it is still such a big thing here. Also, like, look at the title. Is this not the most emo thing ever? Glitter on your face in the back of a minivan driving home. It's so beautiful. I prefer the first half of this album, but in the same way that, like, I kind of preferred the second half of the Cardio Killer album that we were just listening to. This is also one of those albums that I don't really want to skip any of the tracks. There are a few of them that, like, aren't quite as good, or like that I'm not as big on, but again, they just like are switching things up. They're doing something different. And I don't necessarily want weird kind of Crystal Castle adjacent all the time. I do want, like, this is the one that reminds me a little bit of Toro y Moi, which is probably not even the correct group. But again, right, like, in 2026, I can't remember where exactly I've heard these sounds, or where this, I just have these associations with, like, certain artists and groups and periods of times. And I hear it and it's just like, yeah, I this reminds me of something. It's not Crystal Castles. It's not, what else? I gotta highlight the TV on the radio thing. This one had a little bit of the, like, an MGMT kind of energy to it. Not like a huge one, but there's like that weird, vaguely psych pop sound going on. This. It's not quite kids, but it's enough to evoke. Was it Kids that had that synth line, or was it I think it was Kids. Like, my guy refuses to enunciate. And it's like, it's kind of like, it doesn't piss me off in a way that, like, it should, because It's like he's trying to hide behind everything. This is the one that reminds me of Wolf Like You. Or Wolf Like Me, right? Wait, hold on, what's the... Yeah, Wolf Like Me. Why Wolf Like You? And I actually had to go back and listen to TV on the Radio. And it's like, when you go back and listen to TV on the radio, it's like, yeah... I don't know if it really, maybe he didn't hear that song, but like this wall of fuzz that comes in here and just kind of like the intensity, especially in the drums. Go back and listen to Wolf Like Me from TV on the Radio. And like, again, it might be coincidental or accidental, you know, a coincidence. It doesn't matter. Just like I was saying with Cardio Killer, with one specific sound from the past that is like being reimagined or reinterpreted or remembered without like actually going back and referencing what actually was there in the past. This feels like the same thing, right? Remembering, because if Saluki is about 30 years old at this point in time, then that would mean that he would have been like in high school or middle school when most of these musical references would have been things, or maybe even slightly younger. And so it's entirely possible that he consumed those, he grew up around those, he took that in, and then, as is often the case with music, he just didn't really go back to it. And now he's kind of remembering it, and we're getting this like reinterpretation, this memory of a sound filtered through time. "20 tracks, 54 minutes long. Solid from start to finish. A few weeks ago, when I was talking about *Темный принц*, the Dark Prince one, where he had 17 tracks, it was like 34 minutes long or something. And I was saying that like one of the things I want to see from him in the future are his tracks to get a little bit longer. Let him flesh out just a little bit, give him a little bit more room and time to breathe. That's what I'm talking about here. None of these are super long. I mean, there are a few that do, right, like 4 minutes here. But for the most part, 2.5 to 3 minutes, which, yeah, sure, still not super long, but it gives the tracks enough time to breathe and develop, which... You gotta get mood juice in here too. Where's Moojus at? There he is. I'll cut it off there. this also, one thing I want to point out, thanks to this album, I'm coming to realize that the like sort of online rap communities, because SALUKI is part of the Russian rap scene, which does not feel like rap music, right? And Wild East didn't really either, but that's a different conversation. I'm starting to realize that the more the online rap community here bitches and moans about a release, that probably is an absolute sign that it's going to be like a really good album for the most part. Just because for the most part, they're mostly just degenerate. So yeah, really good album from start to finish. This is, I've from the people who I do kind of, who aren't just like the cretins lurking around in the comments sections online, the people who actually do like other reviews and stuff like that, I have pretty much seen only glowing reviews about this. Like, I saw a lot of people saying like this is the album that's going to effectively consume the rest of their summer, which this came out at the end of July, right? And I think that's fair. This feels like one of those albums that is kind of, Cardio Killer just came out last week, right? So that came out the first week, or like the first Friday of August, and this one came out right towards the end of July. Not the last Friday, but the penultimate Friday. And I get it. This feels like this is gonna be one of those albums that when it comes to the end of the year, people are gonna be talking about. It's like one of the big releases of the year. And I think that's fair. It's a big album, 20 tracks. None of them really feel superfluous. Like, they all feel like they have a place. They're all doing something. It never really feels super repetitive, but it all feels like there is a through line, right? Like there's one specific sound. It's not a mixtape type thing, just like with Cardio Killer, right? This is an artist who is remembering music and kind of bringing it back, or just making the music that they grew up with in one way or another. So that is the album EUPHORIA by the artist SALUKI. So yeah, that's that. But anyway, I guess that's it. Yeah, I don't know. I actually realized that there was a guy in the stream, a little stupid, last week, who had mentioned that he had music on SoundCloud. I forgot about that, but I have it open now, so I will take a listen to it. The reason I forgot about it was because last week, when he had sent that message, I checked after the stream and it was not there. It came out, like, I guess a few days later or something. So I'll actually check it out. It's 5 tracks. It's like very, very short. I'm not going to check it out now, but it's like 5 tracks. They are, I got to create a sound. I'll have to open on the main computer here, but I'll take a listen and come back to that next week as well. So a little stupid if you're watching this, or if you do watch this later. I didn't forget. I did kind of forget, but I remembered, so I temporarily forgot. But yeah, the situation as it is with August music right now, my playlist is 123 songs, about 4.5 hours. I have a feeling that like most of that is garbage that's going to be deleted, as is often the case. So like all of this was July music with the exception of Cardio Killer. I'm still going to be picking through July for the next while. I already have one album. I actually was hoping to put it in this week, but I didn't have time to go back through it. So I've already got one ready to go, which is huge. That's huge. That's 1 out of 10. But yeah, well, we'll see. It is possible that August will be a bit of a slow month. Kind of. I feel like, which month was fairly, I feel like May was kind of slow, but then I was an idiot and I realized that there was a bunch of music at the end of May. I don't know. We'll see. But it being the end of summer right now, August is kind of weird because the end of the month, everybody comes back from holidays, but like also a lot of people leave at the beginning of the month. But I don't know. It's kind of like it is anywhere in the world. July and August, I think, are a little bit slower on most fronts. I'm going to wrap it up. It's already been an hour 20. It's not the longest, but still fairly long. Everyone have a good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of day it happens to be where you are. There will be a continuation, I should say, of the walk around the Arbatskaya metro. That will come out. I actually just need to finish checking the video, and I'll be rendering it this evening. So I'm going to go do that right now, and you'll be able to watch it. I don't know, like what, in 18 hours or something like that. So y'all take care of yourselves. I will see you when I see you. Until then, пока-пока.